Hi, I'm Robin Austin, and this is my video discussion on my research paper that I did on Henry Ford and the development and long-term effects of Fordism. So how did Fordism and Ford's creation of the mass production assembly line affect the economy, society, and consumers' relationships to the goods and services that they purchased and the companies that they purchased them from? Henry Ford's introduction of the moving assembly line in 1913 and then the broader Fordist model transformed industrial production, consumption, and social relations in the 20th century. So primary sources that I used were from the Ford Motor Company, Library of Congress, Henry Ford's autobiography, newspaper articles, photos, magazine articles, paperwork from the Ford Motor Company that kept records. So the methodology that I used was both a quantitative process and a qualitative research process to get all this information. The quantitative focuses on numerical data and the statistical analysis, while the qualitative explores the experiences, the meanings, and the context of through that non-numerical data that came out through the articles and the information that the company provided. Henry Ford was born in what we now know as Dearborn, Michigan. His father was an Irish immigrant, and his dad was a farmer. And he grew up on a farm. And Ford says that when he was 12 years old, what he saw changed his plan for his life. And he and his dad were going into Detroit in a wagon pulled by horses. And on the way, he saw a steam engine tractor that just mesmerized him. And it made him think of maybe something he could use for automobiles. And he played with that for a long time, but he realized steam engines are not good for automobiles. And so he kept working on it until he developed a gas-powered engine, and he built his first car. When Henry first started making cars, he did not have the assembly line process. So cars were made by one person, start to finish. One man would do every aspect of the car, and a typical car, Model T, would take up to 12 hours to make. Whereas once he started the assembly line, he got that down to 93 minutes. And what the assembly line did was, rather than one person having to know how to build the entire automobile, each person had one job that they had to do. They only had to do that job, and the assembly line brought the vehicle to them. They would do their job, and the assembly line would move it forward to the next person. It wasn't long before Ford had several different plants across the Michigan area, and hundreds and hundreds, and actually thousands of employees that were helping him. He hired both men and women, and he was willing to hire a lot of black men. And part of the Great Migration from the South, they came to Detroit to work in the Ford Motor Company's plants. Henry Ford provided his employees with good wages, a 40-hour work week that he put into practice, as well as profit sharing, and he helped to create suburban areas for his families to live in. However, Fordism also brought with it a history of racism and anti-Semitism, along with an economic decline in cities like Detroit due to the increase in the population leaving the cities, going out to the suburbs. Some of the businesses and things were hurt in the bigger cities. Critics of Fordism point to Ford's rigidity in design, along with his vertical integration process, which actually ended up causing the company both legal and financial issues over the years. So many people bought the Model T that it saturated the market for affordable automobiles. And this allowed General Motors to come in with luxury vehicles, with luxury add-ons, and take the sales from Ford. Critics believe that Ford should have created standardized components for his automobiles, but not standardized vehicles. Eventually, the Ford Motor Company could not keep up its $5 a day wage due to the depression and inflation. Labor unions got involved and helped to end Ford's goal of a utopian suburban society. The main tenets of Fordism were failing. So Ford's development of the automated assembly line and his labor philosophy continued to flourish kind of into the mid-20th century. But by the 1980s, consumers were looking for diversity in products, choices. They were looking for new technology. New technology allowed for faster delivery and greater diversity. And other manufacturers were willing to change their process to meet what the consumer wanted. In this new era, Fordism looked to be very inflexible and was no longer as profitable as it once was. With that view, post-Fordism came to be the next popular business model. And with post-Fordism came more flexibility in manufacturing, as well as more flexibility with the size of factories and manufacturing plants. Employees could have more flexibility in their job roles, as well as more creativity in production. And by the 1990s, the internet could be found in homes and businesses, which allowed for greater control of keeping track of what people were purchasing. But even with the post-Fordism model, the original Fordism model was still viable in many ways. And in many business sectors, Ford's idea of using standardized processes continued, as well as paying workers a higher wage and keeping cost of products down. Henry Ford and Fordism changed the way that people worked, the way they created and consumed products. Fordism helped to promote economic growth both in Michigan and the world, as well as creating suburbia by making his automobiles affordable and paying his employees a living wage for the times. Ford's automated assembly process changed the way in which companies, their employees, and consumers related to each other. Fordism and Henry Ford's mass production assembly line continues to influence the economy today, along with society's view of suburbia and consumers' relationship to the goods and services that they purchase and to the companies that they purchase them from. Thank you.